So, hi everyone, and welcome to this week episode, which is about bedtime and screen time. And as it's a massive topic these days, I invited with me to have today Isobel Mary Champion, which is a parenting coach. So, hi Isobel, thank you for being here on the podcast and with me. Can you please let us know who you are and what is actually parenting coach?
Okay, hi Veronika. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm so happy to be here talking to you. So I'm a parenting coach, and what I try to do with parents is improve their relationship with their child, help them to understand how their behavior can impact their child's behavior, help them improve their routine, and a lot of it is helping parents to understand that they can do it and just help them build up their confidence to know that they've got everything they need, they're the right person for the job, and they can do it. And generally just try to help them improve the home environment, make it a more calm, peaceful, positive place. And so I work with parents in that way, one on one in their home or over the telephone. We can do Zoom nowadays. And I do a lot of sessions with parents like that. And my background is that I've spent over a decade working with families in London as a nanny. I've been a nanny for over a decade, worked with so many different families in so many different home environments. I've learned so much about families and transitions and children, and I've done a lot of studying, I've done a lot of academic work, and so I have over a decade of knowledge and practical understanding of children and families and parents, and I bring all that with me when I work with a parent and their child. And so that's what I do.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Because one of my favorite show is a Super Nanny, and
Scary.
it's quite a good show. And just especially at the beginning of my being stepmom, I watched this show and I was like, "Are we doing good?" You know? But obviously, today I would like to talk about screen time and bedtime because I'm pregnant with my first baby, so we just like, okay, that's I don't have many experience with handling my child. I do have experience handling my stepdaughter or co-parenting with my husband in terms of our blended family, and we have issues or things with screen time or bedtime, but I would like to talk first before we go to the dark side of a screen time. With your experience, what are actually the benefits or the good things about the TV and iPads and phones, and what is the good thing about it, if there are any good things?
There definitely are some good things. And one of the major good things we've seen with lockdown is that the screens have helped us connect with each other. Like you and I are talking now, we've been able to talk to each other with screens, and children have been able to talk to grandparents or their friends that they might not have seen otherwise, and maybe have play dates over screens. And so the screens have really been important for us during lockdown and during the coronavirus. They've really enabled us to connect with each other, and they've enabled children to carry on with their schoolwork. They've worked on screens at home, and they've learned a lot of amazing new tech skills by having to do their schoolwork at home. They've been uploading and downloading and working on screens, and that's amazing. These are the children of the future, and they've managed to do this kind of work from home. They've learned how to use all these devices, which is amazing. And so other than that, I think screen time can be educational, and children can learn a lot from it. There are a lot of really educational shows and programs that children do enjoy. And most TV shows will be teaching your child something. Even if it seems really silly, they'll be picking up on conversational habits and ways of speaking and vocabulary. I mean, we've all heard children repeating phrases from TV shows or singing songs or telling jokes that they've heard on TV shows. So they're picking things up. And children can really enjoy watching David Attenborough documentaries or shows about volcanoes or space or history. Children really love stuff like that, or under the ocean. If you find a topic that your child likes, they can sit and watch something like that and they'll really enjoy it and they'll learn a lot. And then there are a lot of cartoons that do have a lot of educational benefit, like Fireman Sam teaches the children what to do if there's a fire, and the Octonauts. I love the Octonauts. It's all about, saving the creatures of the ocean. And there's lots of shows, Alpha Blocks, about phonics. And, there are shows that can teach your children things. And even, the less educational shows, they'll be showing relationships between people and good behavior and bad behavior and what happens when somebody gets sad and how, they're always picking up something. And screen time can lead on to other activities. So you can get books based on your child's favorite TV shows. You can get them drawing pictures based on their favorite shows, singing the songs, doing the dance routines. Children, they're probably already doing these things, and you can just extend those activities a little bit further. And children will often play a game based on their favorite TV shows. So they will pretend to be Fireman Sam, or they will pretend to be Superman or something. So, the screen time, it can come out into the rest of their world in a positive way, and, get them reading a book. If they don't enjoy reading, get them a book based on their favorite character from a TV show. So there's lots of ways that it can be a positive thing. And sitting down and watching a movie together as a family can be a really good thing, because you can talk about the issues that come up in the movie. These are all reflections of real life, good and bad, and, evil and triumph over, having to fight for something. If you talk about these things as a family, that can be a really good thing.
Oh, that's fantastic, because we're now like being new parents quite soon. It's obviously like everybody like, no screen time, no TV, no iPads, and everyone like, yeah, you will see, you will see. And we definitely have a few rules already with my husband put in place, even in terms of my stepdaughter, when my husband said like, we will watch TV only after they have a good day out, for example, biking, or they do some activities, or they're baking now. So after they spend really good quality time together, when they learn something, they do something together, or we all doing something together, they have a bit of the screen time. So it doesn't take the whole thing. But I love when he mentioned David Attenborough movies or documentaries, because they are so brilliant and so much fun to watch with the children. I never enjoy documentaries like that. Like, I was watching with my stepdaughter, because we were making funny noises, or we were just talking like an animals, so we were just having a lot of that. Or even the questions she was asking afterwards, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. No, but it just helps you to get another level of connection with them and learning that you learn. I definitely had to learn a few things before I was able to talk to her about it.
Yeah, and they remember so many facts. Their brains will soak up all this information. It's fascinating, the facts they can remember from these documentaries.
No, that's amazing. That's really, like, I love watching the documentaries with her, because she enjoys it. I enjoy it as well. And we have a lot of fun together to watching that, because there's a lot of funny things as well. It's serious, but a lot of fun things as well. And so it's good to know that we have the technology, and it can be helpful for us and families. But now let's go to the dark side of the screen time, because it's a massive topic, obviously, now these days. But we will be focusing on the children, not on us grown-ups, because you're parenting coach. And this is a thing that I find sometimes even worrying when I see a little child, not even maybe 1 year old, and just completely fascinated by Peppa Pig or some sort of cartoon characters. And it's just, for me, it's just like, it's look like the baby's gone, in a way that like they just so fascinated. And I don't know if it's a good fascination or bad fascination, or how it is, the dark side of the screen time, because you have so much experience, over the decade, right? Yeah, over a decade. So you could see the difference when the mobile phone, or the cell phones or iPads become normal
Yeah.
for the children.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is that we have so many more of these screens now. Before it was just the TV, and now we have the TV and we have the iPads and we have the phones. There's so many of them in the house, and they all have the same thing on them. They can all have Peppa Pig on them. They can all have, the everything on it. They're all the same. Whereas before it was just the one TV in the corner of the room, and now we have so many of these screens. So there's just so much more of everything. And we have subscription services like Netflix and all the other ones, and the internet gives us everything. There's so much of everything. The content available to children is endless. There's just so much of these cartoons, so many shows, so much of everything. And it's very different from, when I was a child, where, there were a few cartoons on in the afternoon after school, and then it finished, that was it. Then it was the news and the weather, and it was boring. So everything is available now. There's so much of it. It's endless. And then the big problem for me, especially with regards to children, is that everything has been designed to be addictive. There's tech companies in Silicon Valley or wherever they are spending millions and millions of dollars making these things as addictive as possible. And they put so much money and research into how our brains work to hook us into these things. It's very frightening. And then you take a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who's got an iPad or a phone, or even a teenager, they're just a child. Their brain isn't fully formed yet. They don't really understand. And they're holding something or watching something that has been designed to manipulate their brain to want more. And that's really scary for me. And we have so many of these screens, us as adults, we've gotten used to this. And, it's a very slippery slope. You let your child watch a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then you have to do some cooking. So you think, I'll just let them watch a bit more. And, this is something that's very, very addictive. And then when you switch it off, you're switching off something that has a big hold over your child. So you then have a very upset, angry, child filled with rage because you've switched off something that they're very hooked into. It's been designed that way. And, us adults, we're probably all addicted to our smartphones and Netflix, and we don't even know it, So for a child, I think it's quite scary. So that's why I think as adults, we have a responsibility to be in control, and to be very firm and to have very strict boundaries about these things, because they've been designed by people who know far more about our brains than we do. It's a scary thing. And then that applies to advertising as well. If your child is playing games or watching on the internet, there's a lot of advertising wrapped around most things. And on the TV, the adverts for the toys and things, there's a lot of money that goes into that as well, and a lot of research into children's brains and how children's minds work to make them want what they see in the adverts, or to make them want to be like the children that they see in the adverts who have the toys. And children often don't recognize adverts for being adverts. And if it's on the internet, something that they click on, a clickbait trap for children, they'll click on something that looks like a game, but it's not a game. And then it takes them to something else, and it takes them to something else. So that, again, is something that, your child isn't prepared for. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't recognize it for being an advert. And it's all out there to manipulate them and to get them hooked in. So it is pretty scary. And then we have the issues of blue light. Blue light comes out of our screens and it affects our brains. And, we all lie in bed looking at our phones or looking at our emails, and children will watch a little bit of quiet TV before bedtime, and it doesn't help us sleep at all. It's, it's not good for bedtime. It's not good for the evenings. Blue light isn't good for sleep. So that's another problem. Just trying to think if there's anything I've missed out. Social media, for older children, it's such a big topic. Is there anything good about social media for children? I'm not sure. It's just another platform for all the difficult things that there are about being young. It's just another platform for it, and it involves photos, and they have pressure to put photos of themselves on. They then worry about how they look, and it can be a platform for online bullying. It again is endless, it's manipulative, it has advertising in it. So I'm not sure about social media if there's anything good about it, but it's part of our lives now. We have to accept it. So yeah, these are all things as a parent or as an adult, we have the responsibility to set a good example and be firm about the boundaries, because I think children are just not prepared for the amount of money the tech companies have spent designing these things. They're just innocent victims of these enormous corporations.
That's very true, and all you said, I completely agree, because it's one of the things when I said, I will use Peppa Pig again, because I think that Peppa Pig is very controversial. Like a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. So it's really one of the cartoon, especially here, I think in the UK, I don't know if it's a worldwide, which is very questionable. How much addictive it is, and it doesn't actually set a good examples to children about how the Peppa Pig treats her brother, and the brother doesn't eat veg, and so before we had a before we done this podcast, I was just like little googling and see like what is out there about this issue when the child is so addictive,
Yeah.
And just can't stop watching or keep asking for the specific cartoons, or just the screen time or social media later on, when they're teenagers or old enough to be on a social media. But one thing, when you said like you need to be like, we need to be example, we need to take a charge as a grown-ups, as a parents or step parents. And one thing is always when you said like we are on the phones a lot, we are watching a lot of TV. And I can see it sometimes. I have a background TV on, and I'm working on a laptop or on a PC, and then my phone is on. So I can see myself, having that. And if someone will take away from me my phone, my iPad or Netflix, my computer, I will be okay. What now? Not just the part of okay, I need certain things for my work. But if they will take the fun part and say, okay, what now? And a lot of couples, I can, because as a relationship coach, I deal a lot of people say, oh, he is like, my partner is always on the phone. And I ask my clients, like, what about you? Are you on your phone all the time as well? And then you just put it down, and it's like, hey, you don't talk to me, or you are always on the phone. So this is exactly what you said. We need to be the example. If we want to tell off, our children for being on the phone all the time, then okay, look at yourself first. Like, are you on the phone all the time? Are you watching all the time Netflix? Is the TV always on? And it's really quite being hypocrite to telling kids off for something I'm doing actually as much as they do.
Yeah. So the first thing you can do if you want to cut down on your child's screen time is cut down on your own screen time. Put your phone away, and let your child see you not looking at your phone, not looking at your laptop, and try and keep it away so your child doesn't think that's just a normal thing to have your phone in your hand all the time, or to be looking at a laptop or something. So it's important.
So what other tips you would give parents if they're like, okay, we need to change this, a part of being an example, like how to actually even deal with the upsets and tantrums which can obviously raise when you take the things away?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is to be aware of how addictive these things are and how much it can affect your child, and be mindful of that, because once you know that and you're aware of it and you've read some information about it online, you'll understand how hooked your child can get on these things and how hard it is. So when you do switch off and they're angry or they cry and they scream, you can understand why that is. They're not doing it because they hate you. They're not doing it because you're a bad parent. They're not doing it because you're really mean. They're crying and screaming because they have a very manipulative thing affecting them. So if you can understand that, it will make you feel better about switching off, and it will make you feel stronger about doing it, because you're not doing something to make your child hate you. You know, you're switching off for a good reason. It's a good thing. Even if your child screams and cries, it's not because you're a bad parent or because they hate you. It's because this thing is very manipulative. So be aware of that, and hopefully it will make you feel a little bit better about it. Then I think a good thing to do also is, when you do have to switch off, be ready to do something else with your child. So don't just switch off and then leave them sitting on the sofa staring at a black screen. Switch off and have some really fun activities ready for them. You know, be ready to play with them, read some books with them, take them out for a walk, take them to the playground, do some baking. So, you know, you switch off and there's something else there waiting for them. And it'd be great if that can be you know, a human being for them to interact with and play with. So, you know, that's a much better way of switching off than to just switch off and leave them with nothing to do. So yeah, if you can switch off in a positive way and have something ready for them, you know, get the toys out and the games out first before you turn off the screen, that can be a helpful way of doing it. Setting boundaries is really important. So, you know, you're in control, you know what the boundaries are, and you stick to them, because it's a very slippery slope. Screen time can get out of control very quickly. So if you set the boundaries, you switch off, you say, right, it's time to switch off now, stay in control. That's a really important thing. Even if your child argues, if they say they want more, you stay in control and be firm about it. Make sure your screen time in your home is safe, because it's very, very easy for children to go from one thing to another thing to another thing, and then they end up with something that's completely inappropriate, or that they become very good at manipulating devices. So they'll open up apps or open up files or photos that, you know, they'll suddenly be looking at something that they shouldn't be, or, you know, something you didn't expect them to be able to find. And the internet, we all know, is very, very dangerous. So make sure your home is safe with all your devices. You've got your parental controls switched on. You can install family safety software, and, you know, you can lock your screens. You can make them safe for your children. So that will give you the security in knowing that you've done as much as you can to keep your child safe. And set a good example with your own screen time. Make sure you're not on your phone all the time. Make sure you're not looking at your laptop all the time. Put it away. Set a good example for your child about, you know, you can be a human being without a screen attached to you, you know, and it can be fun. And save screen time for when you need to do something. You know, use it as a tool for if you need to do something important. You need a bit of me time. You need to do something for half an hour or an hour. Save screen time for that moment. You can get something done, and then when you're finished, you can focus on your child fully without trying to also be doing something else. So yeah, those are my tips for how to use screen time as a positive way, as a parenting tool, and to keep it really safe and, you know, keep it under control.
That's very good, and thank you for all the tips, because they are all very good, and I'm sure that a lot of people will find it helpful. But one thing about like blended family is that, and I hear it all the time from stepmoms or stepparents, that they said, well, we don't have control over what's going on in the other household. And so many families or co-parents struggle that they have a different rules for social, for social media, for screen time, for using everything. And it's either way, like either one of the parent is more flexible, let's say, or that they don't really, I don't want to say care, but they're not as careful as other parent. So is there any tip or suggestion you would, recommend for the co-parents if they don't agree on the whole screen time issue?
Well, I mean, I think you have to accept that you have no control over what happens in the other house. That's separate. You know, you can't change what's going on in that house. And what you can do is make your home environment as safe as possible, as positive as possible, and you can do your best in your home environment and show the child the best possible example when the child is with you. And if you would rather be out in the park doing fun things, playing games, reading books, baking, and then they have their screen time, you're doing the best thing. That's the best thing you can do for your child. You're setting a good example. You're showing there's other things you can do other than watching a screen. So you just have to do your best in your home, and hopefully that will, you will be rubbing off on the child these great habits, great way of living, great way of being. And if they can take some of that home with them, that's great. But I think you just have to accept that you can't change things in the other house. That's somebody else's environment. So just do the very best you can in your home, and you will be affecting the child. It will have an effect on their development and their personality and the way they look at life. So you do your best.
Yeah, that's very good, and thank you for that, because I know that a lot of stepmoms are dealing with this issue, and yeah, they really struggle with that, and like co-parents in general. And one thing we did with our stepdaughter, that when we said like she has her phone, but it's staying always in her bag. She sometimes when we need to do something and we are too busy, where like she's like, okay, go play, go read, and she was like, can I be on the phone? And we said like, well, we would rather if you play or if you read. And it's just, anyway, it's just 5 minutes and we're back, so we just give her the timeline, like it's just gonna be a few minutes anyway, or half an hour, whatever. So she has a little bit of, that kind of sometimes her phone time when she is here for a longer period of time. But for example, what we did, we really, and that's just for even my husband and me when she's not around, is there like no phones at the dining table. So when we have a dinner, there's no way that there's a phone. It's only in an emergency when we expecting some really, really, really important call, or there's just something that like is an emergency that we are allowed to take the phone call. But otherwise, it's just no phones at the table. And we started this when she was like with my husband straight away when we met. It was like us like, no phones are going away for dinner. But with her, we started teaching her that when she was around, I think 5. And there was a few occasions when my husband's phone was ringing and he took the phone and she was like, no phones at the dining table, So it was quite a good way to actually give her kind of responsibility of being, having that was like, no, this is not allowed. This is our rule. You need to respect this rule. And by her like telling him off, we don't, at this point she's 10 now, and we don't have that problem. It may change in a few years, who knows, but maybe she will start kicking out and she wants to have her phone more. But at this point we have that kind of, we set some sort of example. And the same for us, we are not on the phone all the time when she's here. We put the phone away and social media away, and use it only when we need it.
Well, that sounds amazing. I mean, I see parents who, they will have their phones at the table. They're looking at their phones while they're eating, or their laptop, and their children are young now, but I think when your child is 13, 14 and they have their own phone, you've been sitting there with your laptop and your phone. It's going to be tricky when you're trying to tell your child they can't do it because you do it. So if you don't do it, your child will understand that that's not what you do.
Exactly. It's about creating the healthy balance when it's the common ground, when you don't ask them to do something you are actually doing, and you are the worst in that. Brilliant. It's any other tips? How would you create the healthy balance? I think we covered quite a lot of tips about creating the healthy balance, about the screen time and phones. I think we covered a lot, didn't we? Or you did? You covered a lot of tips. Or
I think so. I think you just need to go with your gut instinct and what you feel comfortable with. If you feel that it's too much, it's probably too much. And if you don't feel comfortable with what your child is doing, it's your home, this is your family, you're responsible here. It's probably, what your gut instinct is usually right with children. So you have to do what you feel is the right thing to do. And if you think it's too much, it's probably too much.
And you were mentioning in terms of screen time in the evening because of
Yeah.
the blue light and obviously excitement and other things when it comes to watching or watching shows or being on the social media, whatever the kids are doing. Um, and I would like to take it to create a bridge to bedtime because
Yeah.
that's another thing which I see on the social media that parents can struggle with.
Yes.
And it obviously it's a little bit different, or it can be even worse in blended families because the
Yeah.
children are going from home to home, and a lot of step parents are dealing with a co-sleeping and like unwanted co-sleeping because all the stress and the kids are going through and the anxiety. But how would you take that, like how would you create or tips how to create the safe and positive and peaceful bedtime?
Okay. So when we talk about bedtime, I try to encourage parents to think about bedtime not as a time when your child goes to bed, like this is bedtime, you now have to go to bed. You have to see it as more of a transition period. So it's maybe an hour or 2 hours of time in the evening where you're going to transition your child from the awake, excited, busy part of their day to the part of their day when they're lying in bed and they have to go to sleep. And you need to see it as a transition period where you're going to wind your child down, you're going to slow everything down, you're going to turn the lights down, and you're going to make everything more quiet, more peaceful, more calm. Because if you try and rush that, it's not going to work. If you try and do it really quickly, it's not going to work. And if you have something that you want to do and you're trying to get your child in bed before that happens, it's not going to work. Any parent who has ever tried to go out in the evening and put their child to bed first will know that it doesn't work. And the more you try and rush it through, the more it's not going to work. So you need to keep that transition period, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, really slow and calm and peaceful, and preferably the same every night. So the same things happen in the same order. And we don't really want any screens or any sugar during that transition period because it's not going to help. So that transition needs to be really slow, really calm, really peaceful. Start from, maybe after dinner, you're going to have a nice, quiet, slow bath time. You're going to have pajamas. You're going to have reading, maybe a little bit of playing quietly in their bedroom. Keep it all really calm, really peaceful. And before your child is going into bed, try and sit and have a nice little chat with them about what happened during the day and how they're feeling, talk things through. And there's a really lovely phrase I picked up called unpacking your child's emotional backpack, which is a really, really nice thing to do before they have to close their eyes and go to sleep. So the idea of this is your child starts the day with an empty backpack on their back. And by the end of the day, the backpack is really heavy and it's full of all the things that have happened during that day. So they might have experienced something at school, something good might have happened, something bad might have happened. They might have overheard something that made them feel unsettled. They might have had an argument with you, or they might have had a tantrum about something, or they might have seen a TV show with zombies in it that frightened them. So if you think of them having this full backpack on their back that's weighing them down, and if you can unpack that backpack with them before they go to bed, it can be really, really helpful, and it can make them feel a lot more at peace and lighter. And if you can talk through all the things that might have happened that might be in their backpack, it will make it a lot easier for them to go off to sleep. So that's a really nice thing to do. Last on your list of this bedtime transition is to unpack the emotional backpack. And if you can keep all the lights really low, keep your voices really quiet, just smooth that transition period, and it will help your child sleep. It's a really effective way of doing it. And another thing to add to that is during the day, make sure they get outside and they do lots of exercise in the daylight, and get them running around, take them to the playground, take them for a nice long walk, especially when the daylight is really bright. If it's sunny or, you know, during the middle of the day, that really helps their sleep patterns, and it helps them to feel sleepier at night time if you can get them out in the daytime. Even if it's raining, you can still go out for a nice long walk. And that's also a really nice thing to do together as a family, you know, spend some time together, go out walking, you know, you're not looking at a screen, you're walking together. Children often talk while they're walking, so that can be another way of getting them to unload whatever it is they're carrying around with them. So, you know, if your child is struggling a bit with sleep or with bedtimes, try and add in a walk, you know, maybe after dinner or in the evenings, just go for a little walk outside as a family, and you know, spend a bit of time together, have a bit more fresh air, a bit more exercise, and that will, you know, it will aid their sleep. Reading is also a very good thing to do at bedtime. I'm a big fan of reading. It's a great activity for bedtime, to get your child to read to you, you read to them. It's very calming activity. It's very peaceful, and it really slows everything down. And it's a nice close activity that you can do together.
I really like the idea of unpacking the backpack, the emotional backpack, because when I become stepmom, or when I start dating my husband, or when I actually moved in, I just started noticing how the bedtime was a bit difficult, or it was like, oh, how can we engage all of us together? And we didn't get much out of my stepdaughter in terms of sharing, because there was, they were going still through divorce. So there was a lot of tension, a lot of, for her, new things to get used to. And I did a lot of Googling back then about like what to do, how to help, how to be the best stepmom possible. And I somehow came across a blog post, and there was a mom doing 3 questions every night with her children, and they were, what made you happy today? What made you upset, sad, or cry? And what did you learn today? And we started doing these 3 questions, and then my stepdaughter wanted to add, what made you proud today? And we still doing it. We started when she was just before 5, and we're still doing it. She's 10 now, and it's exactly what you said. Is a good time before the bed to talk to her if there is something. So many times it's like, oh, I don't remember, I don't know, nothing. So it's like, okay, so nothing made her upset, that's fine. But there were times when we actually find out that something was bothering her, or she has some troubles with some boy in school. So is this such an interesting experience what these few little questions can do for your relationship with your children or stepchildren? And yeah, she loves this question. We're still doing it 5 years later.
That's lovely. Yeah. Another thing is, I mean, it's great to do the unpacking the backpack last thing before bed. You can always do that. But a really interesting thing about talking with children is they will often talk better while you're walking with them. So many parents will ask the questions at dinner time. You sit around the table, they're trying to eat, they say, what happened at school? What did you learn? And it can be very awkward. And I think it's very difficult for children to talk and eat and try and have good table manners and eat if eating can be stressful enough anyway. So I think walking can be a really, really therapeutic thing, being outdoors. And if you go for a walk alongside a child, the things that they will come out with, it's really interesting that talking and walking seem to go very well together. So walking is also a great thing to do, with your child. If you need to get them to talk, it can be a very effective way of doing it.
That's very true. And thank you for mentioning the dinner time and asking questions, because my husband always does it. They sit down for the dinner and he's like, okay, what did you learn at school this week? And it's like, I don't remember, and I was like, let her eat, let her calm down, let her eat. And then I always tell him, because my husband is asking always the very generic question. And it's like, you need to ask him a bit more specific. Like, what kind of book are you reading right now? And then we start talking about the book. But if he just asks, like, what did you learn this week at school? 99% of time we get, I don't remember. So there's something that like asking more specific question.
Definitely.
It proved in our case that it works better because
Mm.
and yeah, I would definitely suggest the walking more. We do go for walks, so they do a lot of biking and walking. So yeah, that'd be something definitely to take on more. And before we wrap up, I would just like to ask you about the co-sleeping because
Yes.
there is a way how to help children to, especially the ones who go from home to home,
Yeah.
how to help them or how to support them to actually be, okay with staying in their bed.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the hard things for children of step families and anyone who travels between homes is that the bedroom is an unfamiliar room, and it's an unfamiliar bed, and it's an environment that it's not the same bed that they sleep in every night. It's not the same room that they sleep in every night, and I think that can be quite a big deal, because I mean, when I travel, when I stay in a hotel, or if I go and stay in someone else's house, usually the first night I don't sleep at all, and the bed is funny, and the room is funny, and everything is strange, and you wake up, you don't know where you are. So I can totally understand that sleeping in different bedrooms for children can be difficult to get used to and quite unsettling. So I understand it's not an easy thing for them. So what I would suggest is to try and make the bedroom as cozy and as inviting as possible. And what can be really nice is if you get the child to choose some things for their own bedroom, take them shopping, let them choose some things. And so then they feel they have a personal connection to the items in that room. So they can choose a lamp, they can choose some cushions for the bed, they could choose a rug, and choose some bed linen or posters to go up on the wall, so that it's not just a strange bedroom that they come to once a week and it's an unfamiliar environment. They will have a personal connection to the items in that room, so it feels like something that they have chosen. That can be a really good thing to do, and try and make it cozy and spend more time in the bedroom. Don't just take them to the bedroom at bedtime, because then it's again, it's an unfamiliar environment. If you can spend more time in the bedroom, play games in the bedroom, do reading in the bedroom, spend more time in the bedroom to make it feel more familiar, because otherwise it's a strange room that they're expected to sleep in suddenly. So I would suggest spending more time in the bedroom, letting them make it a room of their own, so they can choose things to go in it, and so they have a more of a connection with that room. Otherwise it's like arriving in a strange hotel room that you have very little connection to. And then a couple of other things I was thinking about after we talked about this. There's something called a body pillow, which is a bit like a pregnancy pillow, the big U-shaped pillows.
Yeah, my best friend now.
Yeah. So you can get a body pillow for children. Um, so for children who like to lie alongside somebody or have that close contact with somebody, you can get a body pillow that they can actually cuddle up against. It's like a pregnancy pillow, but more like a long one. And they do cute ones for children, so that they feel close. They have that sensation of closeness in their bed, so they're not alone in an empty bed. They have this cushion, it's called a body pillow, that they can cuddle up and be alongside, and it will make them feel sort of close with something. I mean, some children do like to sleep packed in with lots of teddy bears and cuddly toys and pillows. I was a child like that. I would sleep packed in with lots of different teddy bears and cushions, and I still sometimes do that. If I'm in an unfamiliar bed, I will pack myself in with as many pillows as I can, because you get that feeling of being cocooned in something, and it feels more secure. You feel you have that feeling of closeness. Another thing that can help children with anxiety is something called a weighted blanket, which is something therapists use with certain children. You have to be very careful with weighted blankets. There's a lot of safety instructions that come with them, and it might be worth talking to your doctor before you get a weighted blanket. But it's essentially a blanket that has been weighted to make the child feel like they are being held. So it's something to make your child have the sensation of being held and closeness. It's a heavy weighted blanket that can help children with anxiety. It's just another thing that you can consider, like the body pillow, so they feel more secure in their bed. Another thing that can be nice is if you give your child or your stepchild a t-shirt or something that you have worn to sleep in. So they could wear a t-shirt of the parent to sleep in rather than pajamas, because it will have it will smell like the parent, and it will give them a feeling of security and of closeness. You know, you might not be there with them, but they're wearing your t-shirt, or you can give them an item of your clothing to hug onto while they sleep with their body pillow, or, you know, with all their cuddly toys, to give them this sense of security, of closeness. So, you know, we can do this with babies and children with their transitional item. So their teddy bear that helps them sleep, if it has the scent of the parent on it, so if you keep it against your skin, it will smell like you, and that helps them to settle themselves to sleep in their own bed. So these are all things that you can use to make their bed seem more appealing, to make them feel more secure in their bed, and to help them, you know, sleep in their own bed without having somebody else with them. There's lots of different things you can try. White noise is very effective for some people. Have you heard about white noise?
Yeah, I heard that, especially with the babies, and
Yeah, with adults. Yeah, with adults as well. I like white noise. For some people, it's very soothing, it's very calming, and it can just help you switch off and take your mind off whatever's giving you anxiety. Or so these are things that you can try to see what works, because some things work for some children and adults, some things work for others. So these are all things you can try to make your child's bedroom feel like a really cozy little secure cocoon that they can be in, you know, on their own without having to have an adult there with them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
and then
you
I
very much for, yeah, sorry.
think just with the co-sleeping, you know, it's like with the screen time, you have to be in control, you're in charge, you have to be firm, and, you know, it's important for an older child to be able to sleep in their own bed, to be able to settle themselves to sleep. So, you know, you need to take the lead and be firm about it. And it's tricky, but, you know, it can be done.
It can be done, exactly. It can be done. And thank you very much for these tips. I never thought about like body pillow for children, or I never thought about it, because like we never did go sleeping with my stepdaughter, but she was at the beginning, she was scared in her bedroom in the previous house. Now, fair enough, there was a staircase for attic, so it's like fair enough. Like she was scared that something will come down for her. But there's so many good tips in that co-sleeping question, because I'm sure so many stepmoms will appreciate it, or not just stepmoms, but parents will appreciate it, because I never thought about it. I never thought about like giving a child a body pillow, and it just makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
You know, it replaces having the person there, and it's just it's a sense of closeness and security that they can have. And yeah, I mean, all these tips can be used for adults as well. There are a lot of adults who don't sleep very well, who, you know, have problems getting off to sleep. I mean, I'm a big fan of sleep products. I have pillow mist to spray on my pillow. I have so many things, and, you know, sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. And children are just like adults. Sometimes they lie awake at night and they can't sleep, and, you know, they've got things going on in their head, or, you know, maybe they watch TV all day and they're just not sleepy. I mean, we don't all sleep perfectly every night, you know. It's just, we just have to be realistic about it.
Yeah, it is about being realistic and patient, and just as you said before, sticking with your gut, and creating the boundaries and being in charge of it. Before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to tell the parents, some words of encouragement, or do you think that we covered everything?
I think we've covered a lot, but
Yeah.
I think parents most parents, you've got everything you need. You know, this is your child, you can do it. You're the leader of the team. You know, this is your team, you can do it. And you know, we have good days, we have bad days, but you know, you can do it. You've got all the skills you need, you've got everything you need. You just need to have confidence and, you know, be strong in your gut feeling. And you know, what you feel is usually the right thing.
Brilliant. So where parents can find you, if there are parents out there, you're listening, and you can contact Isobel, because yeah, she's parenting coach. So where people can find you, and I will be obviously adding links to description, so it's just a click away. But where we can find you?
So my website, you can find, it's www.isobelmarychampion.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Isobel Mary C, which I started this year, and I'm now worried about my own screen time because it's taking over my life. I think maybe it's too much, but you can find me online. You can find my website, and any parents are welcome to get in touch with me. I'm happy to hear from any parents. I'm usually able to do a quick free consultation with most parents, and I'm happy to chat and answer any questions. So yeah, about anything we covered today.
Perfect. So thank you really, really much for everything again. It was great having you, and you give even me such a great tips for not just, you know, my own coaching, but my own future child and stepdaughter, because there were really a few good tips, which is like, oh, I never thought about that one. So thank you very much for being here with us today, and I hope, you know, speak to you soon, and maybe we can do more episodes in the future, because you do a lot of things in your parenting coaching. I had a look at it.
I would love to, definitely.